If you ever felt like someone with Parkinson's is starting to mumble or that their speech just isn't as clear as it used to be, it's not that they're being quiet. There's actually a neurological reason behind it. Now, a lot of people describe it kind of the same way. They'll say, I can hear them, but I can't understand them. Or it sounds like they're not opening their mouth enough. Or they used to speak clearly, and now their words just kind of run together like mumbo jumbo. But what's important to understand here is that this isn't necessarily a thinking problem. It's not that they do not know what they want to say. It's that the body isn't executing speech the same way anymore. Now, in Parkinson's disease, the brain has difficulty sending strong, consistent signals to the muscles, and that includes the muscles that are responsible for speech, like your lips, your tongue, your jaw, and even the muscles that help give you your voice. So what starts to happen is that these movements become smaller. And that's really the key concept here, reduced motor movement. So the lips don't move as much. The tongue doesn't move as precisely. And the jaw movements can become rigid and kind of stiff and limited in its movement. And when those movements become smaller, speech naturally becomes less clear. Now, on top of that, there's also a voice component. So many individuals with Parkinson's experience what we call reduced vocal loudness. So not only are the words less precise because of smaller motor movements, but the voice itself is softer. And when you combine those two things, less precise articulation and reduced volume, it creates that mumbling effect that you guys notice. But here's where things get even more interesting, because many people with Parkinson's, they are not even fully aware that their speech has changed. So from their perspective, they feel like they're speaking at a normal volume. They do feel like they're over-articulating or articulating properly, but what they're hearing internally does not match what's actually coming out. So when you say speak up or you're mumbling, it can feel confusing and probably frustrating to the person with Parkinson's because in their mind, they are already doing that. And it's that mismatch, that sensory disconnection that is a huge part of the problem. So now the question becomes, well, what can we actually do about it? So the first thing is bringing awareness back to speech, because if someone is not aware that their speech is unclear or their voice is soft, they're not going to naturally adjust it. So instead of saying stop mumbling, a more effective approach is something like, can you say that again louder? Because that shift gives them an actionable cue in order to change their behavior. The second thing is exaggeration. And I know that that might sound a bit strange, I get it, but exaggeration is actually one of the most effective strategies for someone who has Parkinson's. So for speech, that means opening the mouth more, over-articulating words more, and speaking louder than what feels necessary. Because remember, what feels like too much to them is actually exactly what sounds normal to everyone else. And this is something that we use all the time in speech therapy, especially in programs like the LSVT Loud program, where the entire focus is on recalibrating how loud someone thinks they're speaking versus how loud they actually are. And over time, with repetition and consistency, the brain starts to adjust. So the person begins to recognize what normal speech, normal loudness feels like again. Another thing to pay attention to is pacing. So when speech starts to become less clear, people will sometimes speak faster without realizing it. And when you combine fast speech with reduced motor movement, clarity drops even more. So slowing down even slightly can make a noticeable difference. Not dramatically slow, of course. Come on, guys, but intentionally slow. Pretty much you're giving each word enough space to be clearly articulated. Now, there's also one other thing that pretty much gets overlooked, and that's fatigue, okay? Because speech requires effort, and people with Parkinson's, it requires even more effort. So you might notice that their speech is clearer in the morning, but becomes more difficult later in the day. Or after long conversations, their words can become less precise. It's not lack of effort, it's more of fatigue. So being mindful of timing, especially the on versus off symptoms, can also help support clearer speech. All right. Now, lastly, let's talk about consistency, because consistency is everything here. So this is not something that changes overnight, but with the right strategies, like bringing awareness to speech, using exaggeration, adjusting pacing, and being mindful of fatigue, you can absolutely improve clarity over time. Thank you so much for being here. Definitely check out these other 2 videos on your screen, especially if you enjoyed this one. Again, my name is Danetta Davis. I'm a medical speech language pathologist. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel for more insightful videos. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.